Welcome to a bonus episode of the Podcast Discovery Show, and we're just going to talk to you about some of the crazy things that have happened to us in the past week. I'm Zach.
I'm Kirk.
And Josh is working or doing something else right now. But we wanted to essentially just give you guys a little bit of an update. We just got back from Podcast Movement 19, and
it was so cool. It was so cool.
It was an experience, like one that I was not fully anticipating when we signed up to go there. And we wanted to tell you guys a little bit about it.
So we'd never been to a podcast convention before. You know, we've been doing our show for about 2.5 years, but this is the first time that we've kind of gone. And our main goal was mainly to network, meet other people that are doing podcasts, things like that. And, we went on a limb a little bit. It cost us a decent bit of money, but we thought, hey, maybe we'll learn something. And to be honest, it was definitely exceeded our expectations. It was definitely worth what we spent and all the things that we were able to do, the people we were able to meet, and the things that we were able to learn.
Yeah, I made that much in shirts.
Yeah, speaking of shirts, I think me and Zach both got at least like between 10 to 14 shirts each.
I think I ended up around 14. I gave away 4, and I still had 10. But
we got so many free shirts.
But I mean, they were all podcast shirts, and it was free, and so it helped me feel better about the ticket price to get in the door.
This is true, and we got some free coffee.
No, and I mean they were nice shirts,
and they had podsicles. ESPN had
they were pretty good
free
actually.
podsicles.
Yeah, but yeah, a bunch of branded stuff. I was curious when we first got there, like, okay, are these booths going to be podcasts? But in general, they were not. There was one podcast that had a booth. Typically, the vast majority was podcatchers and or platforms, and then there was also hardware.
There was a lot of podcast technology that I didn't even know about. You know, some of the stuff we can talk about.
Yeah.
That we discovered. We'll probably talk about that on Todd's, like things that we discovered there. But there was some really interesting stuff. There was a lot of overlap. I feel like there's a lot of companies kind of starting to do the same thing, seeing if they can be the new thing, new one.
Okay, what it seems like is happening, and there's a ton of these out there, so if you guys, hit us with a message or something, and we'll let you know some of the ones we saw there. But a lot of people are trying to merge the idea of your hosting platform and then also a catcher. So there's a lot of kind of trying to make it so that there's not 6 different things that you're using. There's one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of them will be like, okay, well, we got integrated, like, basically like Patreon integrated into your thing, or there'll be you can edit your show in this same thing that you're... Anyway, it was interesting. There's a lot of really cool tech people there.
No, and everybody's really nice.
Everyone was super nice.
And that was kind of a bit of a thing for me and Kirk, is we both are not... It's not that I'm not friendly, but it's not... I'm not, like, super...
extroverted.
Yeah,
I think you and me are... I would not say that either of us are complete introverts. Like, we're not, like, hiding in our rooms and don't talk to anybody. But I feel like it's that initial contact with somebody that I have problems with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I can initiate a conversation with somebody, I've won 90% of the battle that I usually internally fight with myself, which is that first little bit. So honestly, it was a little bit
having
weird.
The show really helped. Having the show that we have really helped me, because I promise you that 90% of the interactions that we went through is we would tell them that we were on the Podcast Discovery Show. We would tell them what the show is about, and they'd say, wow, that's super meta. Let me tell you all about my show. And so it was such an easy icebreaker that it kind of did make it a lot easier to have these conversations. But it was kind of a thing for me and Kirk that we were like, okay, we're going to go into this and we're going to talk to everybody. So we did. We went to
every single booth.
And that's why I ended up with so many shirts. Yeah, because I went and we're going to engage. We're going to engage every single one of these people.
We're like, what is your thing? Give me your pitch. And they pitched us, but we listened to it, you know? And I think some of it was very valuable, and we've made some connections that hopefully we can leverage later on, either with a relationship with them or to use their actual product. We're excited for that. But it also was an extremely learning-centric thing. I mean, there was panels after panel after panel. I mean, you literally could not go to all the panels you wanted to because there was so many good ones back to back and at the same time.
It was crazy, and it was very diverse on how they were structured. So really, you could find what you're looking for, what general topic area you're looking for, and you could go find something in that area.
Yeah.
And yes, there was a ton of just learning experience there that we definitely picked up on.
Yeah, we learned a lot. We went to a lot of the panels, and it kind of reinvigorated us to want to make. We've always wanted to make a good show, and we've kind of, at times we've struggled a little bit, but we really want to make the best show that we can for our listeners. And so we've kind of been intentional in figuring out what changes we can make to make our show just a little bit better for you and kind of grow the show as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We just kind of through this got another kind of kick in the pants about, okay, take it to the next level again. Because anybody that's listened for a while, or if you listen to our back catalog, you'll notice that there's changes because we're always trying to make a good product. But it was just another one of those things where we got the inspiration, but then we also got a bunch of knowledge and a bunch of education on how we can do that specifically.
So specifically the action points that we're going to try to make is we're definitely going to be a lot more active on social media, which I think we've always struggled a little bit with because we all have like this a little bit of aversion to kind of being the social media folks. Because
nobody in the PDS is really one of those people that's always on social media. That's none of us are those guys. And so it is something where we're having to be intentional about it.
I think Josh doesn't even have a picture on his Facebook.
No, he doesn't. He
deleted it at one point, and he only started it back so that for the show, and then he never even put a picture. Yeah. So he looks like a
and he's never. I don't think he's ever posted in the Podcast Discovery Club. So he basically just looks like a bot that has the same guy's name. So what are you going to do? But basically, I just say that all to say that doesn't mean that we're not going to put in the effort to make sure that there's a place that a community can build, because we really do. One of my main goals as we were kind of going through this, there was multiple times where people set goals and trying to understand what you're trying to do. And one of my main things is I would love for our Facebook group and any eventual stuff that we do to kind of expand on the community building side of things, to make it so that there is a group of people who can all get together and talk about new podcasts that they just discovered, or just in general, new things that they've discovered.
Yeah, new music, new podcasts, new news stories, crazy science things. We love discovering stuff. I mean, that's kind of what we wanted to do from the beginning, and that was our goal from the beginning. We were very bad at trying to initiate a place where people could come together, but I think that we're growing that. We're working on it, and we're going to be much more intentional about it, either on Twitter or on Facebook. See, I don't even understand the Instagram thing yet. Maybe one of you guys will have to help me out. I don't know what you're supposed to do on an audio medium on an Instagram. That's what doesn't. But yeah, so we want to make a Facebook and Twitter community where people can interact with us, tell us what they've found and things like that. And like I said, we can kind of all discover something new through each other, and that's one of our main goals is to do that.
100%.
We're also going to continue improving our show's content, be more intentional about kind of like a loose structure to our show, but I don't want to kill our show by putting too much structure around it. We always want to have a little bit of improv to it, but we do want to be a little bit more intentional about what we're saying and kind of more of a where we want to go in our conversations. Yeah. So hopefully that'll help in our content. And then lastly, the things that we were going to change is we're going to really make some really awesome bonus material for people that want to engage with us through Patreon. Me and Zach have talked about it, and we kicked it around for a long time, but we're actually going to initiate making what we're going to call podcast shorties. Podcast Discovery Shorties? What did you call it?
PD Shorties.
Yeah, PD Shorties.
It's like the PDS, but it's Shorties.
Yeah. So there's a lot of podcasts out there that are like 10 to 15 minutes long, which doesn't really lend well to our normal format, because how do we talk about a 10-minute long podcast
for 40 minutes?
Yeah, from 30 to 40 minutes. It's kind of goofy. So what me and Zach are going to do, because we work together, is during our lunch break, we're going to get together and we're going to record a podcast about short podcasts. So even our show is only going to be like 10 minutes long.
Yeah, max.
But it'll be an extra bonus episode that you can get through Patreon. Also, we're going to hopefully do release some of the archive episodes that are not even on any of the catchers anymore.
Yeah.
Those are for the really hardcore fans that want to hear things
here's the thing.
a long time ago.
Well, yeah, we're saying that we're constantly improving, and that is true. You will notice it is less structured, and there is more variability on the quality of the show.
There is.
But it's not.
But if you're a hardcore fan, and that's the whole point. I mean, when I've listened to a show, sometimes I want to go back and hear the origins.
Yeah, and we're still talking about podcasts.
Yeah, yeah. If you, the show's the same. It's just we gotten better at it over the years.
Yeah, I like to think so, at least.
Yeah, yeah. In my head, we have.
Yeah, at least that.
But anyway, and also we're hoping later on to incorporate like some sort of chat feature, whichever one probably more people are on, whether it be Discord or Slack or Google Hangouts, whatever is the
something.
easiest thing for everybody to be on. Maybe through a patron thing where we can have kind of a private discussion group within our patrons to let them maybe even contribute to the show what they've discovered that we can talk about on the show.
Yeah,
Things
honestly,
like that.
that's another thing that I would consider just a huge win for us, is if we have a large enough community around us that we can incorporate community discoveries every single week.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, that's a 100% something that I would love to see happen. So that's why we're really focusing on community building, because I want to make community discovery a part of this.
And the last thing we want to hit on is all the amazing people that we were able to meet.
Yes, we met some awesome people here.
So to start with, we went to one of the parties that iHeartRadio did.
it was a podcast rager.
This thing was, I mean, I hate to say it, but it was a kick-ass party. It was an amazing party.
It was awesome.
They had open bar. They had definitely a lot of different like appetizers they were going around with.
They were throwing sliders at us.
They were. And there was so many people there. They rented out this whole bar. I think they had karaoke even at one point. We weren't inside. We were outside.
I didn't notice the karaoke. There was definitely dancing.
There was definitely dancing. Maybe it wasn't karaoke. I don't remember. But we met so many people that night. We networked so hard. So hard.
True.
And it was so fun and everything like that. So we got to meet a lot of other podcasters. But then
It was great.
during the convention,
We met some of like our heroes, honestly.
I was going to say, like, I've talked to my wife about it. I think we talked about on the show about it. Like, who would you want to meet if you could? And I met, like, most of the people that were on my list.
Yeah,
because
I
most
met-
of mine are podcasters.
We met really awesome people at this thing.
So, if anyone's listened to the show for more than, like, a month, you know that two of my favorite shows are Lore and Snap Judgment. And me and Zach both got to meet Aaron Mahnke and Glenn Washington and Mark Ristich, which is one of the producers to Snap Judgment. And, I mean, heck, we met Aaron Mahnke at the iHeartRadio party, and I told him how to make guacamole.
Yeah, so the first time we met Aaron Mahnke, he was kind of like on a mission, and I told Kirk to like keep an eye out, because I don't know what anybody looks like in the podcast world. You know, it's not something that I hadn't ever considered it before, but I was like, I literally have no idea what this person looks like. But Kirk saw Aaron Mahnke. He was kind of busting like down beside us, and we stopped him when we took a picture with him, and you can see that on the Twitter and everything.
Yeah.
But then we had a much more fun interaction when we got to the iHeartRadio party. He was literally standing right inside the door, just hanging out. And Kirk got to tell him the secrets to guacamole.
And I don't know if I should just divulge this secret.
Maybe
It's
not.
kinda-
They might really excommunicate you.
Yeah,
for this.
It's a secret of my people. I don't know if I can tell you guys.
I think you should, though. I think that they'd be okay with sharing the wealth on how to make good guacamole.
Okay. So the secret is some sort of cream-based product, whether it be like sour cream or like mayonnaise or something like that. We've always used mayonnaise in my family. Not a lot. You can definitely ruin it by putting too much. But if you put just a little bit, it gives it that creaminess that you don't quite get when you go to a hipster restaurant and they make it right in front of you with just a avocado.
Yeah, sure. And he told that to Aaron Mahnke.
I
and
did.
He was like, what? No, but he's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely just the nicest guy. Had an Amazon show for his podcast. Like, if there was
2 seasons, not even just one season. He had 2 seasons
if
of
there
an
was
Amazon
anybody
show.
we met that like was the most famous, it has to be Aaron Mahnke.
Yeah.
And he was a super down-to-earth nice guy. And literally the next day, he had a presentation.
Yeah, his panel was great. His panel was great.
I think it was about monetizing your podcast, like just kind of doing it
The business side of podcasting is what it was.
That is what it was called. And it was about like making smart decisions and how you can monetize things and how you can turn your podcast into something that makes money. But he's just a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
Super nice, super down to earth. If you ever see him, he says on his Twitter and stuff like, say hi to me. You should. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah, heck, we even emailed him and stuff like that. We've been in a little bit of communication with him after the show, and he's accessible. He's a really cool guy. And like I said, if you want to contact him for any reason, I think you should.
Yeah.
Also, we really quick sidebar. When we met Glenn Washington, I saw him, and he was being pitched very hard by one of the
vendors at the
vendors at the expo. So we stood by, felt very awkward because I really wanted to meet Glenn
what's
Washington.
What's the word for that? Lurking?
Oh yeah, we were
That's lurking,
at least
right?
hovering.
We were like within 10 feet of him.
Between lurking and hovering.
Yeah, we were within 10 feet, not moving, standing and waiting.
For like 20 minutes.
It was a while. It was longer than I was expecting. I was very upset that we didn't get one of those champagnes with strawberries in it by the end. Or no, it was daiquiris,
yeah,
right?
they were making daiquiris and giving free daiquiris out. Another thing they had there, they had free daiquiris
beer.
and puppies and free beer. It was amazing. Not free puppies, but you could pet the puppies.
No, you couldn't have the puppies.
My wife was like, they're giving away free puppies?
No.
I'm like, no, free beer, and you can pet the puppies.
Yes.
But it did say free beer and puppies.
Yeah, no, but it was just petting the puppies. You can't have it.
But anyway, we were waiting to meet one of my heroes, and he gets done getting pitched really hard by this vendor, and then he starts to walk away, and we start to,
get
his
follow
attention.
him even more aggressively.
And the vendor stops us thinking we've been waiting this whole
they
time
start
for
to
him to
shake our
pitch
hand.
us. And I'm like, no. We are not waiting to talk to you, my friend. We're waiting to talk to him.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got to meet him, took a picture with us. Super nice guy. I got to talk to Mark Ristich a little bit. I've been in a little bit of contact with him as well. Both of them were super cool.
Yeah, really nice. Honestly,
Told him how much his storytelling meant to me because, I mean, it really does mean a lot to me, a really good storyteller. And because my dad always was a really good storyteller, and that always meant something to him. So it was something that kind of was near and dear to me. And to meet him was kind of, I think that was the pinnacle for me. Was Aaron Mahnke and Glenn Washington were the pinnacle for me.
The pinnacle
of the people
for
that I
me
always
is-
wanted to meet.
is still forthcoming. But we also met both of the hosts of Ear Hustle.
Yes.
We went to a keynote speech by Nigel Poor, who's the artist who went into San Quentin and found Earlonne Woods and like kind of put the pieces together here to make what Ear Hustle became. And first of all, if you don't know, Ear Hustle is a show inside San Quentin prison. So Earlonne Woods was in San Quentin, and he would interview other prisoners about life in prison, and they would always look for the humanity in these small little things that these people are talking about. And nobody was at the keynote that we went to.
It was so weird.
And then Kirk was like, hey, Earlonne Woods is back there.
Gotta admit, I should be a PI because I was finding these people in like crowds or like really
There
dark
was no
rooms.
crowd on that one. He was just sitting at a table by himself.
Yeah, but I'm
There
like,
was-
hey,
yeah.
that's him over there.
Yeah, so we went up to him afterwards, and we just walked right up to him and told him, like, and okay, spoiler alert, Earlonne Woods is no longer in San Quentin. He is...
It ruined the show for him.
Yeah, it really doesn't. That show is amazing. And we actually found it because of Snap Judgment,
Yes,
Glenn
we
Washington.
did. Yep.
But that show is amazing. If
Very
anybody
good.
has not listened to Ear Hustle, please check out at least one episode. It is incredible. But we went up to him, and we basically we didn't hard fanboy out or anything, but we just told him we loved the show.
Yeah.
We told him that we love Ear Hustle. It's super interesting how they're humanizing people that are kind of dehumanized a lot of times. And I can't remember if me or you said it, but one of us said, like, we're so glad you're out. And
Yeah,
he's like-
that was my
he's like-
favorite thing.
He's like, you're glad I'm out? And he just started laughing. I was like, I love this guy.
He's like, I'm glad I'm
Yeah,
out.
It's like, I get that, man. And then Nigel came up and we met her as well. And
Yeah.
they're super down to earth, super nice. And they just make an incredible podcast.
And I didn't realize until their second day panel that they had basically won a competition that was
to
at
get the show.
Podcast Movement a few years before to make Ear Hustle.
And it is just,
Awesome.
it seriously is so good. Like, that show is one of those ones that makes you think a long time after the show
Like you
ends.
said, just them being able to humanize people that are so easy in our minds to kind of dehumanize. It's powerful. It's a very powerful thing.
But yeah, that was a awesome interaction. So cool meeting Earlonne, especially because now he's out of jail. His life is completely different.
Yes.
And now Ear Hustle, this isn't even a spoiler because this is like publicly announced. Because Earlonne's out of jail, they had to set up a whole new team inside San Quentin. So there's going to be two sides to this now. As Ear Hustle, like, I honestly wonder if people are going to look back on Ear Hustle and be like, this is revolutionary.
It is.
Because this had not crossed anyone's mind, but now there's going to be one Ear Hustle that's inside San Quentin still. So they're going to be talking to inmates and they're going to be doing the same thing. But then they're also going to be able to transition to Earlonne and Nigel will be able to talk about reintegrating.
Yes.
And be able to talk about what it's like for people who are getting out of prison and trying to become part of society again.
I already listened to one of the episodes that was like that, where they talked to people that got out, and it was so crazy because one of the guys like had a plan and everything, and it was very easy for him to, integrate back in, and the other guy didn't really have a plan, and he went right back to, doing the drugs and stuff like that, and it was really sad.
No,
but
recidivism is very, very common.
It made a lot of sense. He didn't really have a plan coming out, and he didn't have a support system for when he got out, so it was very easy for him to fall back right into the same.
But all of this stuff is awareness for complex. I won't get on this. This isn't the PBS. Don't worry. We're not going to keep going. But meeting Earlonne Woods and Nigel Poor was amazing. And I asked Earlonne, like, do you think that your show has created change inside of two institutions, two jails, two things like that? And he said, yeah, he thinks it has.
Yeah.
And so it's just really, really cool
I think it's at least for sure changed people's mindset for the people that are inside.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they bring any positive change, then that is just such a huge win. But yeah, both of them just absolutely incredible. They had a keynote the next day that everybody was at. I guess people just didn't put together that Nigel Poor was Ear Hustle.
Yeah, I think us as podcast fans, because basically the format of our show where we listen to a lot of podcasts, I think we're more of the target for finding these people that are just literally superstars in our field.
In our view, yeah.
And a lot of these other podcasters were kind of more there to
learn how to make theirs better and stuff. Which we did go to those panels as well, but we knew on the list of names who we wanted to really listen to. Speaking of another panel that was very empty, but I mean, the guy was amazing. Oh, and here is by far my highest impact interaction.
Was Cal Fussman was doing a keynote. Well, not a keynote. He was doing a panel, not a panel either. What do you call it? Just a speech, essentially.
Yeah, just
one of his presentations.
A smallish room.
About the power of podcasts. And it was funny because me and Zach were like rushing through lunch at the time. The place took forever to give Zach his lunch, so I ran to get a spot, and I'm like, Zach, you've got to make sure you find a way to get in here because Cal is killing it.
Yeah, I did find a way. I didn't eat all my lunch.
But first of all, he was at the door before it started, shaking everybody's hand before they went in. You didn't even know that. He was shaking everybody's hand before he went in. Everyone, of course, is spread out in this room. And then once it was about time to start, he's like, all right, everybody, bring it into the front. So he got everybody to come to the front. He's like, I want everybody to be nearby to just really feel more like a connection in the people in the room. So then he starts telling us these stories. So this guy used to write for Esquire and a bunch of other stuff, and he's interviewed so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, ridiculously
the most famous
people.
Yeah, Kobe,
pretty much
Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, the people you can think of that are famous, he's probably interviewed them.
And A-list famous.
Yes.
Not like, I've talked to somebody who was famous 40 years ago.
And he doesn't do I'm going to go do a 10-minute interview with somebody. He but he was with Muhammad Ali for a whole week. I think he went to his house every single day and spent 6 hours a day with him to get that story. And then at one point he went and he trained for 6 months to fight Julio Cesar Chavez in boxing for one of his stories. He's done insane, crazy stuff.
Yeah, and this, I don't know, just this guy, the stories are
And so
insane.
Again, there's not that many people in there. He had us do this thing at the end where everybody got looked at each other in a circle, looking at each other.
He made us huddle up essentially,
and then made us all
go crazy.
Yeah, make really scream at the top of our lungs, excited.
Yeah,
weird.
all of us empowered each other
Yes.
to feel like we could achieve our dreams.
And it was
in
awesome.
podcasting. It was awesome. Everybody fully committed. It was loud.
We really did, and there wasn't that many people in
Yeah.
there, but it sounded awesome.
And he was doing it too. I could hear him on the speakers. Cal was losing his mind on the mic. And I don't know. It's just the guy has real energy to him.
Yeah. So there's few people that I'm like, man, I really want to be like that someday. There's always a flaw that I don't like about somebody, but him in particular, he has this genuine character that I
really
admire so much.
It
Like,
does
I
seem-
want to be as genuine as that guy someday.
There is a realness to him.
Yes.
There 100% is.
So we got to talk to him afterward. Josh wasn't with us at the time, and so told him about our show, and he seemed really interested in what our show was about. And we told him that, there's 3 of us. One of them's not here. He's like, well, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a small meet and greet at one of the booths. Come by and bring Josh, and let's talk. So we did that the next day.
We did. We once again lurked. We got better at lurking. We stood farther away, and we just kind of waited for our opportunity. And once he was about to leave, and we had to, I think, move a couple times, but like it was worth it because we're like, we want to introduce Josh, like all of this stuff. And we waited for him, and eventually we found him. And we told him, okay, here's the other guy. Josh ended up talking to him as well. He told him that the very first
Essentially, he was kind of one of the catalysts for the show, our show started.
in general, yeah.
Because Josh didn't listen to very many podcasts at all, but one of the ones that he had listened to was the Tim Ferriss show. And, I would recommend podcasts to Josh, and he finally is like, well, I've got a podcast that's going to blow all yours out of the water. He's like, it's an interview with this guy named Cal Fussman. I'm like, I have no idea who that is. He's like, just trust me and listen to the show. You won't regret it. And it was amazing. And that's kind of where me and Josh had the idea of, hey, what if we just did this every week where we recommend a show to each other and then we do that and let other people listen to those shows as well? Because it was very fun. It was really cool to be able to learn of a show, discover something that I hadn't discovered before in a field that I really love, which is podcasting. And so he was kind of one of the main catalysts to our show.
And
when he heard that story, he got really excited.
Yeah. And he said, hey, how would you guys like to come back to my hotel room and we can record something real quick? And all of our minds exploded. I think that we had set up a meet and greet. If anybody's listening to this, that was going to come to our meet and greet, so sorry. Like, that is 100% not our intention to, we really wanted to do that. But he said, come back to my hotel room and we're going to record something. And we're like, yep, we're going to do that. And so we went back to Cal Fussman's hotel room and we recorded for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And the whole way there, we were just talking with him about what he thinks about podcasting.
Yeah, we picked his brain about interviewing, things about podcasting. I mean, it was just surreal, the fact that this same guy that's interviewed, like I said, Brad Pitt, ex-presidents, ex-communist leaders,
wants to talk to us.
Is
Why?
talking to us right now in Josh's car while we take him to his hotel. It was blowing our minds. And then we went, sat down in his hotel room on the couch, and we recorded something real short. Apparently, I'm Okra Kirk.
Yep.
According to him now. Josh is Analytical Josh.
Yeah.
And Zach's just Zach.
Yeah, I'm just Zach. No, and I can't tell if he thought that I was Josh.
I don't know.
Based on the order, you'll hear it at some point when he talks about it.
Possible.
After this, he did include us in his most recent episode of his show. We literally are at the very front of his show, and we are his ad spot for the week.
Yeah, we're basically his ad spot. I will admit, and I'm not lying, that's my new favorite T-shirt. I wore it 3 times this week. Mainly because Josh accidentally gave me his, which I'm probably not going to give it back.
He asked me about that. He's like, somebody has my shirt. Somebody grab my shirt.
So I can wear it twice as much because it's so comfy.
Oh, well, luckily Josh does not listen to the show, so he will never know that this conversation happened, and I'm just going to hope he forgets about it. But no, it was just a crazy moment with Cal Fussman, and he talked to us about what we thought about podcasting and everything like that. And you know what? I don't need to run you through it, because we're going to play it right after this. But we mainly wanted to include that this week, our recommendation on the end of the episode was brought by Cal Fussman. We asked him, we're going to talk about your show. What would you think was a good episode for us to talk about? And so when you hear the recommendation this week, that is what he thought would be a good one.
Yeah, and he kind of asked us, he's like, well, what are you looking for? Are you just looking for a celebrity? Or are you looking for something? And we're like, no, we want something to discuss, something that'll make us think.
And something
that'll challenge us. And and something that you like. And that's why he recommended the episode that he recommended. And it's so cool that he's the one that recommended this show that we're going to talk about this upcoming episode.
So yeah, if anybody is considering going to podcast movement, I have nothing but great things to say.
Yeah.
We had an absolutely fantastic time. We had a hobo lunch one day that was very memorable. It was just a really great time. It was really great time meeting all these podcasters. It was a really great time meeting some of our favorite successful podcasters, learning everything about it, and just reinvigorating our passion for making sure that this show is the best it can be.
Yeah.
So tune in this week. You will hear our recommendation at the end of the PDS proper this week, and this is the clip of us talking to Cal Fussman.
Right, we got 4 going here.
We're ready to go.
Podcast Discovery Show crew. Man, we are ready to go. And for everybody to understand whose voice connects with who, why don't you all introduce yourself? And
all right.
So everybody can get who they're talking to or listening to.
Yep. Hey, this is Josh Howe from the Podcast Discovery Show.
And this is Kirk Griffin from the Podcast Discovery Show.
And I am Zach Howe from the same show.
The Podcast Discovery Show. How did you discover Big Questions? And this is Josh here.
Yeah. Big Questions. I discovered, I initially was a huge fan of the Tim Ferriss Show. And so I was listening to that, and then Kirk and I started hanging out, and we were buddies. And I was listening to Tim Ferriss Show, and Kirk was like, I don't really want to listen to that show. I'm not really into the business side of stuff. I like more storytelling podcasts. And I was like, okay. And so we kind of traded podcasts a little bit back and forth. And then I heard the Tim Ferriss episode with you on there where he interviewed you. And I was like, this podcast is amazing. Kirk, you got to listen to this podcast. And he listened to it, and he's like, you're right. That's one of the best podcasts I've ever heard in my life, just hearing you tell stories. So it was phenomenal. And that was actually the genesis for our podcast. And then from there, we started the Podcast Discovery Show because we're like, this sharing of great podcasts is really...
So the Podcast Discovery Show started when you discovered...
Yeah, we'd go meet at a bar, and I would recommend a show to him, and then he'd recommend a show to me, and back and forth every week until we're like, hey, we're finding some really good stuff. Why don't we tell other people about it?
And how long you been doing this?
Going on 2.5 years, somewhere around there.
That's wild. What do you think it is about podcasts that has caught everybody's imagination? We're here at the Podcast Movement Conference. There's like 3,000 or 4,000 people. It's just filled with vibrancy. A few years back, I really didn't even know about podcasts.
I think it's so personal. I feel like a lot of podcasts, you really get a personal feeling from who the host is, or they're very passionate about what their subject matter is, and it can be very niche and very narrow. So you get people that are being very honest and very invested in what they're talking about, and so there's really, really cool stories to be told. That's one of the things that fascinates me.
One of my favorites is probably that it's not highly structured at this point. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's a lot of people who have come in and tried to make things more similar and maintain a theme. But in general, you see a lot of variation on how people are going to go about whatever their topic is. And so you're kind of looking at just a wide world of who knows what. Whatever your imagination can come up with, that can be your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I used to farm. That's what I did. So I was on a tractor for like 10 hours a day.
Oh, man, you're listening to podcast after. What were you plowing?
I grew okra, tomatoes, strawberries. I mean,
man, so you're out in the middle of the okra fields listening to podcasts.
I was working 12 hours a day listening to like 8 to 10 hours of podcast a day, easy. And so that's kind of why I got him on podcasts, and he was only listening to one, and it was the only show he listened to was Tim Ferriss. I'm like, you got to listen to this one and this one and this one. So kind of that's...
So you got Josh to listen to Tim Ferriss?
He actually was... That was the only thing he was listening to at the time.
All right.
He got me to listen to Tim Ferriss, essentially.
Oh, okay. He got you to listen to Tim Ferriss. I'm sorry. Right. I got it upside down. So he got you to listen to Tim Ferriss. Then you found out about Big Questions.
For sure.
And then shortly after that, the Podcast Discovery Show was born.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they immediately felt something was missing, and so they gave me a call, and I joined as well. And I was not at all I was aware of podcasts, but I wasn't listening to them regularly. I definitely wasn't discovering new ones, trying to explore the genre. And once I got on the show, I was like, okay, there's a lot here. There's a lot here to figure out, to discover, to see kind of where this can go. And I was hooked as soon as I started.
Any idea where podcasts will be in 10 years?
Oh, man.
I think it's the new medium. I mean, there's right now it's the Wild West. There's no boundaries. It can be anywhere. Who knows where it could be in 10 years? I mean, if we've got some regulatory committee that'll come in and kind of rein it in, or if it's going to be something that'll kind of just take off and be its own thing. I don't know. But that's what's exciting about it now is because we're kind of, I heard someone mention it today, is like it's like a teenager doesn't know where it's going to go yet. It's trying to find its identity. That's where we're at. 15 years in is what, podcasts are.
You know what? That's a good description. I feel like this is just the beginning of where I'm going in podcasting. And I came down to the conference to search where it's going to go. And it's given me so many great ideas, and I feel like I'm 22 years old again.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, yeah. I know where I hope it goes. I hope it just keeps doing what it's doing. Explore the boundaries of it. That's the thing that I love about it is you see in TV and in movies that people are kind of restrictive almost on the types of ideas they'll explore. Right now, that is not the case in podcasting. I really hope that people just continue to try and push it and see where it can go.
Out of all the episodes that you've listened to, do you guys get into fights about which is the best, or?
We've got into some disagreements on some shows. It's not often, but it's typically one of us will really like the show, and then one of the other ones is like, I didn't like that show at all. But we like to be a positive show. I think there's enough negativity in the world, and this is part of our mission statement, is kind of to be positive in any reviews that we do. We're not going to go on and say, we listened to this podcast and it was garbage, no one should listen to it, because that's not adding value.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like, I never could understand why book reviewers would go out and completely trash a book.
Yeah.
That some people might even like to read.
Yeah.
And that somebody's, put their heart and soul in. They have.
Yeah. Isn't it better to write something that it would inspire somebody to pick up a book?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you guys are in the same category.
Initially, our kind of elevator pitch was we're a review show for podcasts, but then we realized we're not, because we'll listen to the bad podcasts. I'll be honest, we've listened to some bad podcasts, but we just don't recommend them. We don't bring them to the show and tell the people to listen to them and then bash them, because there's no fun in that.
Yeah.
We want to curate a good playlist of podcasts for our listeners, and we want our listeners to be able to trust us to find them something great.
Okay, so if people want to discover great podcasts, how do they find you?
We're at the Podcast Discovery Show on all major podcast catchers. I think we probably added a few more of the smaller ones that we weren't aware of before this week. We're on Google, Stitcher, iTunes, all of those things. On
iTunes website.
iTunes is the easiest. If you just type in the Podcast Discovery Show, you'll find us right there.
Absolutely.
And at the PDS Official.
Yep, on Twitter.
If you want to reach out to us, we all kind of see that. So if you want to talk to us directly, we'd love to hear your podcast recommendations or anything else.
We're very accessible. I mean, we're just regular guys. We all work our regular jobs, but we love to talk about podcasts, and we want other people to learn about amazing shows that are out there. And kind of our mission statement is there's always more to discover. There's always more amazing things that people are doing that there is to discover. And that's what we want to do, is help discover that for other people and let them share their discoveries with us.
Well, Kirk, when you're out on that tractor, going through that okra field, you're going to be even more comfortable listening to those podcasts, because I know you're going to be out there in your sporty tee.
Oh, yes.
You know it.
So what was it like? I gave all three of you guys, and to be completely honest, I gave all three of you guys a Big Question t-shirt, Sportique threads. What was it like to feel those threads for the first time?
I'll put this out here, and I feel like I'm pretty uniquely qualified, because at the convention, I did make it a point to go see how many shirts I could get from the expo hall. And I did not feel one shirt that was as nice as this Sportique shirt you just gave me.
100% agree.
Oh, man, there you go.
It was remarkably soft. As soon as I touched it, I was like, this is a soft t-shirt.
I'm feeling it right now.
It's of note.
I mean, if you're going to be out there in a tractor, in an okra field, there's no shirt better
than a
Sportique tee.
Absolutely.
We gotta get the message out to all the okra farmers
Yeah.
in the universe.
Yep.
The official shirt of okra farmers everywhere.
Sportique.
Sportique.
TM.
What's DMTM?
Trademark.
Yeah, he's just throwing in a verbal trademark for you.
There you go.
The official. That's their new slogan. Is the official shirt for all okra farmers.
It's so narrow, but it's effective.
We learned about that this week, right? Is your niche. Find your niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it not only works for okra, it works for any crop.
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys. You're all great. Good luck with your podcast. And everybody, check out the Podcast Discovery Show and find out what's good.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cal.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you so
brothers.
much.
And remember, there's always more to discover.